what's going on? Welcome back to Metal Massacre Fab Shop. Today it's going to be a little bit different, but basically I'm going to be doing some modifications, obviously some wheel updates on this old Harbor Freight cart, so stick in there and see what you guys think about it. Alrighty, so this is the Harbor Freight, like the $39 welding cart that you kind of see a lot of these videos coming out about. But this one here is kind of like the original one. I've got this probably, I would say, close to 12-13 years ago, and it's been a pretty great cart. But just recently the wheels kind of let go, so that's one of the big modifications I'm going to end up doing to this. I'm going to come in here and put some different wheels on it. I would also like to make a home for this Lincoln 140 and the CO2 tank back here on this cart. So that's kind of what's going to be going on, and just kind of giving you guys some of my pros and cons of this welding cart. Alrighty, so like I said, one of the main things I'm wanting to do with this cart, obviously get some new back wheels on them, because the centers just kind of gave out on these old rubber ones, and it just kind of finally split. And when they did, you can tell they just kind of went away. So basically, I mean, this cart, everybody can say what they want to about it. It's very cheap at Harbor Freight, and I understand that, and there's much better carts out there. Even their newer cart that I've got for my TIG machine is a much better cart, but for I think $29 or $39, I'll leave a link in the description below. This cart is pretty hard to beat. I mean, this is my first welding cart that I ever had, and like I said, I've had this thing probably since about 2012-ish, somewhere in there. And I mean, I've replaced the front casters once, and then the back wheels finally, you know, went. And I guess you guys out there, I would recommend go ahead and doing these modifications that I'm about to do, just so you can save yourself the headache. But like I said, I do have new casters up front, so that's a big recommendation for me. Just go ahead and update on the casters, because everything they have from the factory is kind of pretty cheap, as you would expect. So I've got the rear axle removed, and this little cotter pin here, that's about all that's holding those wheels on. But like I said, on these things, they're pretty cheap. I mean, there's not even real bearings in them. It's just a piece of plastic there. I don't know if you can see that, but that's all that's holding the inner race of the wheels, and then there's two flat washers on either side of those. So the axle is just a little bit too big for this old wheel that I had laying around. It's actually an old caster that I had, but it's got nice steel ball bearings in it and all that good stuff. So I'm just gonna turn this thing down a little bit on my belt sander here until it fits up. Alrighty, so now that I've got that through, I'm going to turn around and do the same thing on the other side. Alrighty, now that I've got my axle and everything all ground down in where it's going to be, I'm going to go ahead and reassemble all these washers on here and then slide the axle back through. Test fitting the axle. These wheels are just a tad bit wider, it seems, so when putting the axle through here, this cotter keyhole is going to be a little bit too narrow. So what I'm going to do is just going to go over just a little bit more and just drill another little hole in here, just so the cotter keys can go closer to the outside and retain those two wheels. The wheels are back on it. The next thing I'm going to start tackling on this is going to be getting a spot for my Lincoln 140 to go in the bottom part of this. So in order to do that, I'm going to probably have to raise this shelf up just a little bit, and that's going to be the next task. Alrighty, so this thing is fit down in there now. Like I said, I did remove this, so that's also just sitting in there. Basically what I think I'm going to do, because I'm not going to be, actually I'll probably raise this up just a little bit just for ease of getting the machine out. But I'm going to bring these holes up, every one of them up just a little bit, so I can pull this machine out, because you're going to want to get your machine out when you go to change wire or anything like that. So it's kind of a pain in the butt, but this little 140 I don't really use very often. It's kind of just a backup welder, so it's more or less just to free up space, and I wasn't really doing anything with this lower part of this cart anyway. So alrighty, so I have this thing all put back together with my two welders stacked on it. So I've got my Lincoln 180 up top and then the 140 below. My game plan is to probably put like a 023 wire for just primarily sheet metal, and just kind of run that machine for that. So the next step is going to be getting my CO2 bottle mounted, so it'll go in. And I don't know if I don't think I showed that, but I did dimple dye this in the back here, and the reason being is that's where my gas line is going to plug in. So it's going to snake back here, and hopefully you can see. It's kind of hard to, but basically the gas line is right here, so that's where I'll hook up the CO2. So enough rambling, I'm going to go ahead and get this little bit of a, like almost a step around here built, and I'll walk you through what I'm going to do there. Alrighty, so the first thing I'm going to do is kind of make like a little bit of a back strap here that'll go around this tank, and then it'll connect into this piece of angle. So the angle will basically be bolted to the cart right here, and then this strap is going to go around the tank, and then I'll build like a bottom for it. So basically the first thing I'm going to do is get a measurement around this tank here, and then we can cut this metal. Alright, so the tire distance around here is roughly 22, so I'm just going to go to 22.5, because I don't want this thing to be like a press fit, because that'll make it pretty hard to get in and out and everything like that. So I'm going to get this thing over here to the saw and get it cut real quick. So I got my piece cut. Now I'm going to start trying to attempt to roll this thing over somehow. It's going to be pretty difficult, I would say. I probably should have done it while it was still a little bit bigger, but we'll just try to kind of manhandle this thing a little bit at a time and see if we can't get this thing wrapped around. Alright, so take two. I've got a piece of angle here with a little bit of a gap under it. I'm just going to try to start slowly working this thing around and see if it'll bend a little easier than it was just a minute ago. That's getting pretty dang close to where we're wanting it. I'm going to just kind of continue working it on around there. And yeah, that's pretty labor intensive. So if you could build you a little slip roll or something like that, that'd probably be pretty handy. So that might be a future video, is building a slip roll, so don't have to do this crazy thing. Alright, so this is what I've came up with. I've got a piece of roughly probably 16 gauge. It's going to be the bottom. Then I've got that piece of angle iron that's going to bolt. And then from here, I'm going to end up connecting some kind of metal, and it's going to kind of triangulate down here. It's going to triangulate from the back here and probably kick up to like somewhere in here. Alrighty, so I've got the back tank on, and what I ended up doing was welding this instead of doing the dog legs and trying to bolt it on and all that stuff. It turned out pretty clean as it kind of just flows with the cart. I may end up coming right in here and doing a little gusset one of these days, but for now I'm pretty happy with it. The tank is really snug in there. I do have this chain kind of on here. The way I've got it is basically I just cut one of these links, and all I did was just add that where it'll hook back into there, but it's pretty secure and everything, so I'm happy with the way it turned out, and hopefully it gives you guys a little bit of an idea how to mount this up. But I mean, just be creative with it and have fun. I mean, there's no rules to what you can and can't do with it. These carts are definitely cheap enough to where if you screw one up, it's not going to be the complete end of the world, you know. So, but now, like I've said, I got my 2 welders that used to occupy this space here, and I've got it right there now. So that's pretty cool, and I'm pretty happy with that. Alrighty, so hopefully that gives a couple of you guys out there a couple ideas on how to modify one of these cheap $39, $29, whatever they are, Harbor Freight carts. Like I've said in the beginning, I've had this one for about, I would say 14 years, and it's been a great cart. I mean, other than the wheels falling off of it, I mean, everything has pretty much held up on it. I mean, if you take care of stuff, it's going to take care of you. But basically, I mean, the sky's the limit on one of these carts. I mean, I know you can build your own, but I don't even know if you can build your own for $39. So I'm pretty happy with this old 2 welder cart now. It's a pretty cool setup. So that's all I'm going to say about this one. And I will say that this one also came from Harbor Freight, which I've got my Prime Weld 250 on, and it's a pretty cool machine, or a pretty cool cart and everything. It's definitely a lot nicer, but you're gonna have to pay a lot more up front for it. But if you're just wanting to get a good cart and get in one quick instead of, you know, maybe modifying around on stuff, I mean, this is a really good cart. And drop down in the comments below if you'd like to see me do a review on this one. I don't really have anything I'm gonna modify on this one, but I can kind of go through everything. It's definitely a lot more heavy duty and all that good stuff. So thanks guys for sticking in here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one, and have a good day.